When an isolated container is filled with a uniform layer of fog and then given sufficient enough voltage, something fascinating happens.
I really hope this is showing up on camera. This interesting little effect is something I discovered a few years ago while experimenting late at night, hopped up on a bit of bean water.
I shot a video on the topic, and since then, the exact science behind this phenomena has really haunted me. It's haunted me so much that I knew I had to dig deeper, gather opinions from other professionals, and run simulations which painted an incredible picture of what's happening.
I have to say there isn't a tremendous amount of scientific literature on the topic. Quite frankly, I found very little. And it may have real-world applications. So this is a deeper dive into one of the strangest phenomenons I've ever seen, high-voltage nebulography.
This video is sponsored by Brilliant.
You know, high-voltage physics opens an entire sandbox of beautiful phenomenon. It's why I've created an entire channel around it.
I've shot videos on electrostatic firebending, waterbending, electrostatic levitation, self-healing fractal patterns, pulling energy out of the clouds. This one was actually really cool. All these experiments I thought were fascinating.
But when I saw this fog phenomenon, it completely broke my brain and left lasting questions.
Asking viewers for what their hot take on what the cause was, the explanations ranged from capacitive effects to electron gun scenarios.
Luckily, this effect is extremely easy to reproduce. The basic setup for this fog effect can be put together within minutes.
This includes a large flat container filled with warm water, lots of it actually, a physical separator on one side that has a gap at the end like so, a piece of dry ice, and a low current, high voltage DC power supply. This 20 kilovolt battery powered Wimshurst is ideal because, as you can see, totally harmless. The electrical ground is attached directly to the water and the high voltage positive to your body.
The key here is low current, less than a milliamp, which is completely safe in this application. Now, as for voltage, I found anywhere from 5 to 30 kilovolts works great.
Once the dry ice is dropped into the water, the separator allows the CO2 fog to flow throughout the container, forming a uniform sheet. And at this point, the power can be turned on, and the magic starts. The trails range from hair-thin to somewhat thicker, as seen here, and even really wide, unpredictable bursts. Actually, quite unpredictable. Your finger can draw on the fog from over a foot away. It really is something beautiful. Perhaps the most intriguing of all, though, a flat palm placed just over the fog.
Oh my God.
Creates a clear vortex.
Woo! As you saw, this setup in essence acts like an actual drawing board, and the patterns displayed can vary quite a bit in appearance, but it's this variability that makes this so hard to explain. Now, since this involves high voltage and sharp points, or relatively sharp points, 3 options immediately come to mind based off my experience that might help explain what we're seeing. First, ionic wind. Second, electron tunneling. And third, forced condensation/repulsion.
Let's start with ionic wind. This is formed when high voltage is applied to a sharp point which ionizes the surrounding air molecules. These ionized air molecules are then attracted to an electrical ground, and in the process, they bump into neutral air molecules pushing air towards the ground.
Those collisions are random and not precise, meaning the wind stream produced is a bit turbulent and spreads out over a longer distance.
So, if this effect was caused by ionic wind alone, as seen in my latest ionic thruster, creating lines like these would be impossible.
The part that ionic wind plays in this effect, I'd argue, is mostly at blowing away the fog at closer proximities, as seen right here.
Up next, electron tunneling.
This is a loose term, and it's more of a beam of ions constrained by an electric field. You see, an ionized pathway in open air doesn't always take the form of a hot channel of plasma, aka a spark.
Coronal discharge and dielectric barrier discharges are examples of this. In fact, under the right conditions with strong enough electric fields, a thin channel of air can act as an ion bridge, allowing electron transfer between 2 electrodes, without heating up the air molecules or forming a spark.
I think that's a huge contributor to this whole fog effect, and to confirm the feasibility of an ion bridge, so to speak, I reached out to my friend Chris, who has experience writing computer programs, running electric field diagnostics, and assisting with nuclear research. I have the older video I shot, maybe like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, of this fog effect, right? I never really solved the mystery. And so I wanted to go deeper into it this time and just hopefully get some opinions on it.
So there's a lot of interaction and mathematics that happen here that come into play. But I did do a little bit of a simulation on it as best I could with the time I had.
Okay.
And here's what that looks like. I'm actually going to also slow this one down.
Oh, that's something.
You see your beam there?
There's the beam, and it's a hair-thin beam for the most part.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. And again, I would claim that this was my best estimate, my best guess, but it does clearly make a beam. But the most interesting part about this beam is, notice the speed in there. The beam itself is actually not that fast.
Blown away. Okay, so the simulations that Chris ran indicate that the particular setup that I'm using leads to a highly concentrated electric field between my fingertip and the grounded fog layer. Now this is a huge breakthrough because highly concentrated electric fields, what do? Well, they lead to the ionization of air and a conductive path. So potentially an ion bridge.
During the chat, we did some additional digging through publications and found one study which described an effect similar to this, called catastrophe beams. That publication has the world's most epic title, Propagation of Intense Catastrophe Beams in Air. Now, catastrophe beams are specifically structured light rays, which are characterized by an ability to maintain their shape over vast distances, with the effect of causing an ionized air channel which is self-focusing, not unlike this effect.
Despite them involving light, there are a lot of similarities between catastrophe beams and what we're seeing here. They both involve self-focusing over distance and conduction. So, is the nebulagraphic effect related to catastrophe beams? You know what? Jury's still out on that one.
Last up, forced condensation. After a bit of digging, I ran across some literature which partially explains what's going on in the fog layer itself. Several studies tested the effect that high-voltage electrical fields have on fog, with the agreed-upon result being that it is possible to disperse fog by applying a positive corona discharge.
Reading a bit deeper, this is where it gets really interesting. So that positive high-voltage charge causes all the microscopic droplets of water floating around in the fog, aka that's what the fog is. Well, it causes that to condense together into larger droplets, which then fall. This happens instantaneously, essentially causing forced condensation, leaving behind, you guessed it, clear air.
As it turns out, in arid regions of the globe, some farms use this to their advantage. By running high-voltage cables down the length of their fields, they're able to take advantage of a morning fog, condensing it into a quick shower, and this allows crop growth in otherwise impossibly arid land.
Personally, I think that's really damn cool, and it's a beautiful use of high-voltage physics. I didn't really know about that before filming this video. Now, learning about new science is something I really enjoy, which is why I value this video's sponsor, Brilliant.
As opposed to simply reading, Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons ranging from math, mechanics, and physics to programming languages, computer simulations, and AI. It's all really fun and visual.
Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you mess with variables, see the results, and experience true-in-the-moment experimentation.
For example, in the Physics of Light course, you can rotate polarized planes to see how it blocks polarized light. Or in the new Thinking and Coding course, you can develop your mind to think like a programmer, building a strong foundation in writing functional programs. Crafted by an award-winning team of teachers and researchers from MIT, Caltech, Microsoft, and Google, they keep courses interesting and relevant. This platform helps build your critical thinking skills through visual problem solving any time of day through desktop, tablet, or phone.
Learning every day is one of the most important things you can do for both your personal and professional life. It's what I've done long before creating Plasma Channel, and what I obviously continue doing while shooting videos.
Visit brilliant.org/plasmachannel or click the link in the description down below to try Brilliant for free for a full 30 days plus 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription.
Okay, on to one final test to perform before coming to final conclusions about this phenomenon.
This is the power source I was using. This, well, it doesn't even fit in frame. It's my custom-built Van de Graaff, and it outputs significantly more voltage, but still at completely safe levels of current.
Information that would add context is just how well does this scale up. I have the Van de Graaff and I'll stand further away, so let's see what this does. Let's try it. Oh, yep, there it is. Oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. I really hope this is showing up on camera. That was goddamn cool. That effect lasted all the way out to about 1.5 meters or so. So 4.5, 4.6 feet. Whew, damn, that gives me some things to think about. The effect was still present at 5 feet away. I'm awestruck.
I reached out to Chris and told him about this test so he could factor the result into another simulation. And oh my God, check this out.
I'm going to make it big for you.
Okay.
You and I are the first to see this.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. Yeah, yep. As the ion beam and the ionic wind is penetrating the air, and then it slams into the ground.
Yep.
And you basically get these two eddy currents on the side developing.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right
That's beautiful.
Beam. So do you see how these two eddy currents push in?
Yeah.
But they don't touch. So this shows that, and remember how you also get the cratering effect.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
A little bit of that cratering effect that you could see happening here, but it was so cool.
Chris, this looks really cool, and I love you also have it scaled quite nicely. You have it up to 35 centimeters. You've got the 1 meter per second max speed I see over there as well.
So this part was interesting. We found a study which imaged actual streams of ionic wind, and their photos really closely match Chris's simulation. This lends credibility to the accuracy of our simulation and the ion beam.
Now, there is an effect that you can do with gases in atmosphere. You can get a beam like this if you have a gas of higher viscosity, aka its adhesion to itself is higher than the air around it. Now, the cohesion between the molecules here are happening due to the ionization.
That almost lends some credibility to like the ion bridge, the general term of ion bridge. You have the connectivity up and down that beam using some form of conduction, and adding more credibility to that is then once that beam fully makes contact with the surface, the velocity goes up, which infers that more current is going through it, so it is just like an air wire.
Absolutely.
Now, he also ran an identical simulation, but without the 20 kV applied. The results speak for themselves. The column of air can no longer maintain focus over distance and behaves chaotically. Compared side by side with voltage being applied, we have some great insight.
Yeah, there you have turbulent flow without the ionization happening.
Yep, no ionization happening. You get turbulent flow. It just starts morphing on itself.
You have, with ionization and without ionization, the same column of air, the same boundary conditions, minus the fact that electricity was applied. And you have massive differences in the streams.
Absolutely.
Bingo. That refined simulation painted a really clear picture of what's actually going on here. That was the final piece of the puzzle, and the clarity I needed. So, with the power and voltages applied, specific dimensional layout, and distances used, here's what's likely happening.
Since the fog layer contacts the water, it acts as a highly sensitive electrical ground. At DC voltages above 20 kilovolts, 3 events occur. 1. A positively charged fingertip ionizes the air, leading to a small volume of ionic wind. 2. This ionic wind is then focused by a highly concentrated electric field, forming an ion bridge between finger and fog. And 3. At the point of contact with the fog, that concentrated electric field causes instant forced condensation and also brings with it a small volume of airflow. So essentially, it's an air wire that maintains shape over distance.
If I was just born 3,000 years ago, I could have been a pharaoh. What would be my pharaoh name?
I mean, you've got water bending, fire bending, air bending, there's levitation, and drawing into fog by mere pointing. I wouldn't be surprised if pharaohs were just physicists of the ancient world. Look, I visited Egypt, and no one told me otherwise. Massive thanks to Chris for his help on this. He was fundamental.
Now, it's plausible that my explanation for this effect isn't perfect, but from my understanding of plasma physics and electrical theory, this is my best guess as to what's causing this phenomenon. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this and if you've actually seen any literature before. Hell, from my research, it's not a documented process, so I'd like to call this amazing phenomenon Bowles nebulography. Thanks so much for watching, and you keep staying classy.